Who's that? Commander Claw. Who's bad? Commander Claw. Welcome back to another episode of Commander Claw. I want to get straight into this breaking brew / deck tech. It is another Duskmourn Commander, and it's a Scarecrow. Quite unique. I think you guys are probably looking at this Commander the wrong way, and I haven't seen anybody yet build it in this shape or fashion. All right, straight to reading the card. We have Rendmaw Creaking Nest, a 5/5 body legendary artifact creature Scarecrow. For 5 mana, 3 colors, black and a green. Those colors are called Golgari. The commander has Menace and Reach. If you don't know what Menace is, that is when you attack with this creature and your opponent has to block with a minimum of 2 creatures. Okay, so he says, when Rendmaw Creaking Nest enters, and whenever you play a card with 2 or more card types, each player creates a tap 2/2 blackbird creature token with flying. The tokens are goaded for the rest of the game. They attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. I'm going to make this picture a little bit bigger so you can reread its abilities. Okay, so what I want to highlight is the 2 or more card types. So 2 or more card types are going to be generally artifact creatures or enchantment creatures or artifact lands. Let me know in the comments below if there's something else I'm missing. I believe there's an enchantment land called Urza's something. It's an enchantment land. But these are 2 or more card types. Okay. And when we do that, each player creates a tapped 2/2 blackbird creature token with flying. And those tokens are goaded for the rest of the game. This is where we are building our group slug deck. And guess what? Golgari is not known for group slug. So your opponents may not see this coming. Okay, so when you throw down the 2+ card type, you're putting 8 power on the board. That's the way we're going to look at it. 8 power on the board is those 2/2 blackbird creatures for each player. Okay, so that means we could possibly, each card gives us 8 total power that you control or your opponents control. And that's how we're going to manipulate the game. Let's talk a little bit more. Actually, let me show you a visual of it. So, what I do want to say is they come in tapped. So, when you play the 2+ card type, all your opponents get tapped 2/2 birds. So, your next player gets to untap and he can swing and hit your opponents because those 2/2 black creatures they control are all tapped. This is to say the first time that you actually use this ability. Okay. So the first person is literally getting a swing. You just imagine a rotation. So it's not going to be obvious how we win. This game is going to be a grindy game. So if you never played Golgari before, it is a grindy type of mechanic. It's going to last quite some time. It doesn't end games right away. Golgari is like about returning creatures back to the battlefield, making really big, powerful creatures. You can go wide, you can go tall. You've got so many options with Golgari, but just the feel of these type of decks, they're just grindy type of games, and they can last long. They won't be stacks long, but like their removal strong. You can take out enchantments, artifacts, creatures, planeswalkers with ease in the Golgari colors. But back to how to win. I'm gonna show you a couple cards that are gonna introduce some of the mechanics that we're gonna take care of. We're not take care of, utilize. Okay, on the left-hand side here of your screen on your YouTube tablet, phone, TV, whatever you may be watching on, we got Archfiend of the Dross. It's a 6/6 Phyrexian demon for 4 mana, 2 black and 2 colors. It has flying, and it also says when it ETBs, you put 4 oil counters on it. Okay. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove an oil counter from Archfiend of the Dross. Then, if it has no oil counters on it, you lose the game. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. That is not a big, like, oh my God, I'm going to die and lose the game. It's not. Because you can always sacrifice Archfiend the DOS, if you have some kind of sack outlet. Or you can destroy them with your own spot removal. Easy as that. Let's see. His final ability says whenever a creature an opponent control dies, its controller loses 2 life. That's where we take advantage of all the tokens that we have made, and your opponents are swinging these 2/2 birds, and they're dying to other birds or dying to other big flyers. So every time you make 8 power on the board, those other 3 creatures are going to attack. That's 6 life that has been lost total to each opponent. Okay, and you just keep making more. You're life draining your opponents. And just remember, you have literally 3 turns to do this. That's a long time, and that's not even to count out the other creatures your opponents have. Okay, moving on to the right, we have Revenge of Ravens. For 4 mana, it's an enchantment. It says whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that player controller loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. The biggest part about this card, I cannot talk right now. The biggest important thing about this card, it says whenever a creature attacks you. So that means each creature that attacks you. If your opponent is swinging 5 creatures at you, they automatically lose 5 life and you gain 5 life upon the attack trigger. So you still have the opportunity to block and prevent damage from combat, or use a fog type of mechanic to prevent combat damage to yourself. I'll bring up a fog card later on. Okay, the card on the left, we have Throne of the God Pharaoh. For 2 mana, it's a legendary artifact. It's actually one of my favorite cards. It works with so many decks, especially if you go wide. It's a legendary artifact. It says, at the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tapped creatures you control. So imagine you have a bunch of 2/2 tapped bird tokens on the battlefield. If you have 3 of them, because they always have to attack because it's goaded, that's 3 life each opponent loses. Ooh, it adds up, y'all. Adds up. It adds up. Do not. Oh, I'm sorry. Your creatures come in tapped also. Every time you activate Rendmaw Wrecking Nest ability. I butchered that commander's name. It's Rendmaw. Yeah. Okay. Card to the right, we have the Marionette Master for 6 mana. It is a 1/3 body human artificer. It has the ability Fabricate 3. That says when this creature enters the battlefield, put 3+1/+1 counters on it, or create 3 1/1 color servo artifact creature tokens. Cool. With her, we're going to most likely put the 3+1/+1 counters on her. So next ability says, whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette's Master's power. Okay, so you might be thinking, I didn't mention anything about artifacts besides artifact creatures. What I'm going to tell you later on is this deck, you should use low CMC artifact creatures to power your deck. So every time you play an artifact creature, it is 2 types, and you create 2/2 flying bird tokens, whatever. If you have the Marionette on the battlefield and your artifact creatures die, they might lose 4 life. Your opponent might lose 4 life. Target opponent loses 4 life. If you build up her power and strength, they can lose more life. And it's easy for artifacts to die. Easy. So we have a go wide strategy, right? That's essentially what's happening, but it's group slug. But we could actually overwhelm the board. Oh, I didn't even think about Crater Hoof Behemoth in this deck. Ooh, yeah, that'd be ugly. But anyways, let's make more tokens. How can we do that in green? But we want to keep up with the 2/2 bird tribal thing we got going on here. Okay, we have full flowering, tap XX, and a green. It's a sorcery. It says populate X times. To populate, create a token that's a copy of a creature token you control. Do this X times. We are targeting bird tokens on our side. For new players, when you see double X or triple X, imagine that is 1 mana that you have to pay. So to populate X times, if you populate 1 time, you have to pay 3 mana. Okay, so 1, 1, and a 1. That's a total of 3 mana to populate 1 time. To populate 2 times, you would need to pay 5 mana. So 2 is always how many X's you have is the increments of times you can create 1. So 2, 4, 6, a total of 7 mana. You're populating 3 times, even though that's only 3 more tokens. That's actually a really bad rate, but hey, these are options. Moving to the card to the right, we have Druid's Deliverance for 2 mana. Really like this card. It's an instant. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you this turn. Populate. So here's the fog mechanic that I mentioned earlier, where you prevent combat damage and you get rewarded by adding another bird token onto the battlefield. And also, if you guys are deck brewing yourself, share other strategies and other token possibilities that work with Rendmaw. Like there might be another creature token that works better than birds. Now, the card on the left will work very well with the Marionette Master. So when I read this card, remember artifacts that hit the graveyard. Okay, artifacts that hit the graveyard. Okay, to the left, we have Rapacious Guest for 3 mana, Halfling Citizen. She has Menace on a 2/2 body. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a food token. I believe a food token is a food artifact token. You tap 2 mana, just sacrifice it, and gain 3 life or 2 life, something like that. In the comments, let me know. Then it says, whenever you sacrifice a food, put a +1/+1 counter on Rapacious Guest. So, okay, awesome. Her third ability. When Rapacious Guest leaves the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to its power. So, all these artifact creatures that you are playing, well, they don't count as food. Anyways, every time you attack with a bird token and you go through for combat damage, you create a food token, right? That is considered an artifact. If you have the Marriott Master out, and whenever you use the food token's ability, that means it triggers Marionette Master and opponent loses life. Also, whenever you sacrifice food, put a +1/+1 counter on Rapacious Guest, building up her strength. So when she finally dies, because you can kill her on command because you have Golgari colors and spot removal, or your opponents do, and target opponent will lose life equal to his power. She's really good. So I want you to think Golgari is building creatures and taking life. Bringing back creatures, taking life. Death triggers, taking life. All right, to the right, we have the card Life Finds a Way for 3 mana. It's from the Jurassic Park set. Actually, it's Lost Caverns of Ixalan. I think Jurassic Park was like the little side set of it. It's an enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, populate. So, I will be honest with you. Most of your low CMC artifact creatures are not going to have power 4 or greater. But you might have other cards that are 2 creature types. Oh, ideally, you would like 2 creature types to populate and to trigger this. 2 card types to populate, to trigger this. But in general, any creature with power 4 or greater, you can populate, giving you a +1 on bird tokens out there. So, real quick, the 2 card types, you want to build your deck around this. Otherwise, this deck commander is not really working. What's the point of having a 5/5 minutes reach? That's pretty generic. So we want to make this a group slug commander, making these 2/2 bird tokens, taking out your opponent, and we want to do it often. Okay, to your left, we have Enduring Vitality for 3 mana, 2 green, and a 1. It's an Elk Glimmer. It's from the Duskmourn set. It has Vigilance. Then it also says creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Also, when Enduring Vitality dies, if it was a creature returning to the battlefield under its owner's control, it's an enchantment. Okay, so check this out. All those bird tokens you made, now they become mana rocks. And you can do so much more. Play bigger and better cards. Or more cards. All right, next up we have Crypto Thrall. For 4 mana, it's a 3/3 body artifact creature construct. It has the Protector ability. Other artifact creatures you control have hexproof. Guess what? Your commander is a legendary artifact creature. This is a no-brainer. This is literally a nice protection spell for your commander as he sits on the battlefield, and you continue to make 2/2 bird tokens. So yeah, back to the 2 card types and low CMC artifact creatures. We have Arcbound Worker on the right-hand side for 1 mana. You see here the modular mechanic. I think this is a very old mechanic, secret mechanic that works well with our commander because it's an artifact creature. Let me read the mechanic. Modular 1. This enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. When it dies, you may put its +1/+1 counter on target artifact creature. So yeah, Rendmaw Creaking Nest becomes a 6/6 with menace and reach. No brainer. To the left here, we have Mer Scrappling for 1 mana, artifact creature, which triggers Rendmaw. It says sacrifice Mer Scrappling, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That's very similar to the modular mechanic. They did that, but this is at instant speed. Sack it, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. To the right, Drillworks Mole. For 1 mana, it's a 1/1 artifact creature, Mole. Tap 2 mana, tap it, put a +1/+1 counter on Drillworks Mole, and put a +1/+1 counter up to 1 target commander creature you control. Bam. Not only these artifact creatures are giving you so much synergy. They trigger Rendmaw, and you get to buff it up. Easy as that. Easy as that. So we got to take advantage of death triggers. You have all these birds flying around attacking your opponents. Your opponents are probably attacking you, or they're attacking each other. But there's several cards that can take advantage of all these birds and drain life. Let's talk about them. To your left here, we got Black Market for 5 mana, 2 black and 3. It's an enchantment. Whenever a creature dies, put a charge counter on Black Market. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add black mana for each charge counter on Black Market. This is good because when you start after your upkeep, you start your pre-combat main phase, you get to add black mana. All those bird tokens that have been attacking your opponents or attacking you, somebody had to die. One of them had to die, and you get to add mana for each creature that died. Great way to mana ramp. Let's see. Actually, you will want to mana ramp to a bigger X spell to actually probably kill off your opponents. That's why this card is pretty good. So next we have Death Frenzy on the right-hand side. Golgari colors, sorcery, 3 colors, black and a green. It says all creatures get -2, -2 until end of turn. Whenever a creature dies this turn, you gain 1 life. Okay, so 2/2 is the power and toughness of all those bird tokens. So if you really wanted to eliminate all those bird tokens on the battlefield because they probably gotten out of control and you need to gain life, bam. Yeah. So remember, you created 4. So, possibly if you wiped the board with at least 4 of these, you gain 4 life. Not bad. If you put out at least 2 more, you gain 8 life. That's to say none of the bird tokens died. But you see on here 4, 8, 12. That's a pretty powerful card. So let's take advantage of your creatures, all those bird tokens, and all your opponent's creatures. We have Deadly Tempest for 6 mana. It's a sorcery. Destroy all creatures. Each player loses life equal to the number of creatures they control that were destroyed this way. Yeah, so if we got a wide board state, everybody's losing life. This is self-explanatory. You got 5 creatures, opponent's got 10 creatures. You lose 5 life, your opponent loses 10 life. That can hurt. And remember, we made creatures for them. And also consider during battle combat situations, you might be down a bird, you might be down a creature, and you may have 0 creatures. And by the time you cast this card, your opponents have been up, you could say. They had a stronger board state, and you just need to wipe the board. To the right, we have Chevelle, Bane of Monsters. Black, green, Golgari colors. Human Rogue. A 1/3 body, he has Death Touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, if your opponent controls no permanents with bounty counters with them, put a bounty counter on target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. Whenever a permanent an opponent controls with a bounty counter on it dies, you gain life, 3 life, and draw a card. So obviously you're gonna put this on the birds, right? Because they have to attack. So at the beginning of upkeep, put a bounty counter on your next player's turn. They have to attack during combat. It dies. You get to draw a card and gain 3 life, all for 2 mana. And you do this each upkeep. Yeah. All right, we're still taking advantage of death triggers here. Mazarek Kraldeath Priest for 5 mana, 2/2 flying insect shaman. He says whenever a player sacks another permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Sorry if my visual indicators in the way. Yeah, opponents sacrifice stuff all the time. This also includes you. So all those food tokens that you had and you use this ability to sack it and gain life, uh, you get to put +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So ideally, we would like to put this on our bird tokens. So not only are they 2/2s, they become 3/3s, 4/4s, 5/5s if you do this several times. You gradually built a stronger board state. So imagine 3/4/4 flyers. Ugh, that's 12 damage, player. That's 12 damage. This can get out of hand. Oh, I forgot that this flies too. And you get to buff this creature also. Come on, this is a no-brainer. This will do well in the 99. Next up to the right, we have Demon of Dark Schemes for 6 mana, 3 black and 3 colors. It's a demon flying on a 5/5 body. When it ETBs, all other creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn, which can wipe out your bird tokens. Then it says whenever another creature dies, you get an energy counter. Okay, so remember we made at least 4 bird tokens. All right, so that means 4 energy counters. All right, its last ability is tap 3 and pay 4 energy counters. Put target creature card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, tapped. So we have the ability to steal creatures from anybody's graveyard. Anybody's graveyard. It could be yours or your opponent's. If they got a really enticing, juicy creature that you want to use, Demon of Dark Schemes is your answer. And the more bird tokens that are out there flying, and you board wipe those bird tokens with your Demon of Dark Schemes, the more opportunity you get to use energy counters. And this also includes other creatures that are not the bird tokens. We're talking about anything that's 2/2 or 1/1 in power and toughness. Thank you. Hey, if you like the Rendmaw Creaking Nest as a commander, let me know if there's any other type of way to build it. I just thought the group slug way was pretty unique, and a lot of people probably not thinking about it like that. Uh, I did see somewhere where they wanted to add the white color pip for other abilities. I forgot what commander that is, but that doesn't matter. Renshaw is a Duskmourn commander. I think super fun to play with. It's unexpected to be a group slug commander because your opponents are going to be wondering, what are you doing with these 2/2 birds that you're giving everybody? Yes, everybody. They'll be confused until they see the deck operate. Remember, load it up with artifact creatures. Until then, the next video is going to have more Duskmourn commanders for you to enjoy. Peace out. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed it.